Hello folks! Well, as you can see behind us, it is a warm, sunny day here. Quite a contrast from the last week and a half of just drizzling rain and mild at best temperatures. I swear I felt as if a curse was befallen upon us. But that doesn't matter anymore because, well, it's a perfect day to explore yet another destination here on our Best of the Most West tour. Now, to the side of us is a great river, the Willamette River. No, it's not called the Willamette River, for those of you who already know where I'm going. It's the Willamette River. And that river, as I'll get closer to, is a very, very, very important river for the development and culture of this newest state that we have just arrived in today. So I welcome you to state number 46 here on the Coverage Project. Oregon, the Beaver State. 4 states left. Okay, maybe this is not exactly the Willamette River, it's the Willamette Slough, which maybe just a mile away, maybe less, then it'll drain into the actual Willamette River, which starts its course way up in the mountains of Oregon. And it flows south to north, meandering through all these little country, rustic towns. Eventually, it'll join forces with the Columbia River, draining into the mighty Pacific Ocean. This Willamette River is essentially Oregon's success in a nutshell. Its waters provide a perfect agricultural region to grow numerous different crops, and it was this river that this slough leads up to, of course, that eventually prompted so many people to head west to Oregon. Now, to begin the day in our debut Oregon location, I've brought you all here to the Riverfront City Park. It's a nice, very well kept place, and it seems like it's a nice enough day where everyone's strolling along. You'll see people from just general visitors, day goers, enjoying their day, to people exercising, to people fishing, to even people handing out Jehovah's Witness pamphlets. To top it all off, I love how in the center of this park, right in front of the river, there is a giant globe. I want to check that out real quick. I can't believe what I'm seeing in front of us. A beautiful mosaic of all the world's land masses. Throughout a giant mosaic, you can find not only the biological specimens, but also symbols of those regional cultures around the world. Obviously, I don't have to elaborate any further on how this Riverfront City Park is just beautiful, with the lush forests and the bridge and everything all together coming to make a great little area. But where are we? Where is this Riverfront City Park? Well, Oregon, to me, seems like that quintessential Pacific Northwestern state. Now, what exactly constitutes the Pacific Northwest? Yeah, it's debatable, but An important part of understanding the Pacific Northwest is to come here to the Willamette Valley. It was that critical epicenter of activity in the early days of settlement here. In fact, the Willamette Valley was one of the first places in the Pacific Northwest to be settled. Heck, even the West, the Willamette Valley was one of the first. It is a very important region, and what sits here in the middle, in the heart of the Willamette Valley, that, my friends, is the capital city of Oregon, Salem. I guess this is our ticket straight to the downtown. Let's cross. Well, there's the Salem clock in the distance. I'm heading along this way, don't have time for an up-close shot, but here's where I start to really dive deep into this city. We are in the downtown area, full of history. Every block, it seems like there's history markers telling you this is what's important in Salem, Oregon. Now, when I think of Salem, I'm from the East. I also love dabbling in learning about history, especially the early history of America. And so what comes to mind with Salem? Well, you're gonna think Salem, Massachusetts, right? What happened? Did Salem, Oregon copy the name of Salem, Massachusetts? Was it pure coincidence? Was there any correlation? You guys wanna help me out with that? I have no idea. But there's one thing in America. There's Salem East and Salem West. And Salem West is where we are right now. While Salem East, Salem, Massachusetts, is known for its influential role in early American history as a maritime port. Among other things, at the start of America as a nation, Salem West, Salem, Oregon, might be known for a little bit different thing. Well, little did I think of it, but apparently we're approaching not only the state capital, but also an Oregon state park. You heard me. Oregon State Capitol Grounds is officially an Oregon State Park. You don't see that often. Most of the time it's just a privately owned or a locally owned, city owned, but this is state owned land, I guess. Well, it seems like three things are always a given, always guaranteed forever in this world. Death, taxes, and urban construction. I swear, I tried to hide it when we were in Sacramento, but it was the same deal. Much of this area around the Capitol complex is blocked off. So I had to, instead of going directly here, I had to take a detour all the way around just to get to the entrance. And I'm pretty sure this is the back entrance. I don't want to fall into that old habit that we used to have on the coverage project where we would accidentally enter the backside. It's just, to me, a form of disrespect to the great state of Oregon to do that. Let's see if we can find the front entrance. You're kidding me. We can't even pay our respects and honor this great work of architecture by going through the front, the main entrance. Goodness gracious. Well, it's no surprise that the state of Oregon is always trying to fix problems. After all, this is the third state capital in Oregon's history. The first two burned down by fire. And what remains of the original structure are these columns with bricks forming the inner core. It's a nice testament to the old Oregon history, but oh my goodness. can we just go into the front entrance? Alright, well, let's just pretend this whole mess does not exist, and what we see directly before us is the grand state capitol building of Oregon. My first thoughts, my first impression of this building is, how'd they get a giant thimble on top of this building? How magnificent. It looks incredible. Honestly, I really like the touch. It looks quite different from any of those neoclassical designs with a dome on top. If that's the dome, a giant thimble or a giant drum, well, have at it, Oregon. Additionally, there's a golden man on top who stands proudly, gazing at not only this great scenery of Oregon and Salem, but he's probably a little bit displeased with what's going on over here. So, I'm sorry you have to see this monstrosity, but, well, that's just what it has to be sometimes. Anyway, what do you guys think? Do you guys like this state capitol building? I honestly wish this was our first impression of the state capitol grounds, because everything we saw before just oozed of construction work. But here on these grounds you can see important plaques, different dates, 1846, something with settlers. And each square has something vitally important to Oregon. Yeah, that's right, Oregon statehood, 1859, 33rd state. Yeah, we're not going through the states in the order of admission. I kind of messed that up along the way. Number 33 when it comes to admission to the Union. Quite early when you think of the western states. Yeah, as early back as 1851 did Salem become the territorial capital of Oregon. It was California and Oregon that were the big power players out in the west before any of those other big, chunky, square-like states came about. It was this land that was green and lush, full of promise for not only agricultural profit, but also what you might have found in this country. For example, California, lots of gold. That's why they came to California. They came to the Willamette Valley because this was a nice open place for agriculture. And then as the year 1859 rolled around, Oregon was finally admitted to the Union, as that plaque suggests, and Salem remained the capital of the state of Oregon. Well, hold on, check this out. In each of the squares going forward, it shares to us the information of each county and the year it was admitted as a part of Oregon. How cool is that? That reminds me of when we were in Des Moines, Iowa. Similar thing could be seen. What do you all think of the Oregon State Capitol building and its surrounding grounds? If you're an Oregonian, do you prefer this capitol over all the other state capitals that you've maybe seen here on the Coverage Project? If you're from outside Oregon, do you just happen to enjoy the nice appearance? Do you perhaps think that your home state's capitol building is of more grand design or more beautiful to be appreciated? Well, regardless of what you think, do you think that the capitol experience we're having right now could be a little bit better if the construction and the noise were not obstructing the atmosphere we're in right now? Oh well, let's see if the interior is any more quiet or more peaceful. Oh goodness, looks like a hospital. Well, I just have to say it. I am thoroughly disappointed. So here's what's going on in Oregon. Oregon is a very seismically active state. It's prone to earthquakes. And even though this is the third rendition of Oregon State Capitol building, there are still problems going on. There's a lot of instability within the framework, the architecture of the building. In the 90s, there was an earthquake, not a major one, but still, it was enough to wake people up to what was going on around this building, or rather, what happened under this building. So for decades now, people have kicked the can about what to do. Politicians don't want to be the person to say, oh, we're gonna shut this down, but eventually construction is underway in order to fix this building. So all that construction we've seen, it's been ongoing for a long time, and it's to fix the structural integrity of the Capitol building. And that means the good part of the building that us tourists would like to see is completely off limits. The only part of the building we really got to see was the most boring part. Now, although the Art Deco design does have something to be said, the brutalist interior was just something else. It was just boring, full of office cubicle after office cubicle, and sure, it performs its functional duty, but come on, thumbs down from me. So what can I say? I mean, when the best part of the interior is looking at paintings of lukewarm character and pieces of pottery here and there, it's pretty low on the rankings. I'd have to really give the whole visitors' touristic experience for the whole list of state capitals if I ever wanted to make a list, and I probably will once we hit all 50 state capitals. Oregon's gonna be down there with the likes of North Dakota and the modern Florida building. Yeah, I'm sorry to say it, Oregonians, but I'm overall displeased. On the plus side, right next to the state capitol, is an old relic of Oregon's past. This is Willamette University. And not only is this probably a very prestigious university, I don't know, I'm no college expert, but one thing is to be said here, this is the oldest university in the western United States. All the way back to 1842, before Oregon was even a state, Willamette University was established for higher learning of those folk who dared venture to the West Coast. The Willamette Valley is today known as a big agricultural area, but it wasn't always like that. The first Europeans to come to the Pacific Northwest were in search for fur, pelts, to make hats and other clothing items. That number was very sparse at best, but those who did make the journey realized that this land was full of opportunity. Missionaries from New England came to Christianize the Kalapuya natives that were originally living there, and they too saw that resources were abound here. In the mid-Willamette Valley in particular, mills like these in operation to turn sheep wool into various fabrics and textiles, that was all the rage in the latter half of the 1800s. And this woolen mill industry here in Salem employed about a fifth of the non-farming population, up until the synthetic fabric industry from abroad replaced the long-standing wool that clothed many a person here in the Pacific Northwest. Not just here in the Pacific Northwest, but all over the country, as during World War II, these mills provided clothing to the servicemen who were fighting. It's the ideal climate for raising sheep, which provided such wool. So it was only a matter of time here in Salem until the Industrial Revolution took hold and left its mark right here at this mill. Not only will you find this mill in Salem owned under the Willamette Heritage Center, but you will also find historic homes reminiscent of those days gone by. Not bad for some of the oldest homes in Oregon. You see this? This is the plentiful farmland that one can expect to glance at a number of times while traveling through the Willamette Valley. Different types of plants and crops are grown in these fields in between the two mountain ranges of the Cascades and the coastal range, which is farther away. One prominent berry here that's grown and actually is native to literally this part of Oregon is called the marionberry. Marionberry, what's that? Well, it turns out at Oregon State University long ago, a hybrid berry combining two different types of blackberries was created for the best growing traits, or perhaps maybe the best flavor. And what came out of it was this marionberry. And ever since, it's been a pretty popular choice for all sorts of food items, such as pie. And I don't know many people who don't like pie. So what I got here at the Willamette Valley Pie Company was a slice of marionberry pie. Now that looks mighty tasty. It's been a long day, a lot of calories burned. I need to get some calories in me, and this might be the solution. Now I hope you don't mind the buzzsaw. We are right next to an industrial farm workshop. After all, it's a company, not just a little store. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, so hopefully we can forgive the people operating the buzzsaw. But anyway, here is a marionberry pie. Marionberry, what is that named after? Well, in fact, we are in Marion County. Salem, Oregon is not only the capital of Oregon, it's also the county seat of Marion County. So that's the story. Let's dig in. I am famished. Wow. It's like a really, really, really sweet blackberry pie. Now, if you go to the real small towns of Maine up in the northeast, you can find yourself a really nice blackberry pie. And I'm sort of getting reminders of a nice blackberry pie with this marionberry pie. Go figure. Same general species. Very sweet, very tasty. The best part about this is that this is a local operation. We're not going to some big chain store for this pie. This is locally sourced. The berries are grown probably very, very locally. We're surrounded by nothing but farmland. It's only fitting that we try this very, very local treat, only to be found in Oregon. Or at least if you find it elsewhere, I'm sure right here in Marion County, it's probably going to taste the best. A bite of this marionberry pie will make you feel like a true Oregonian at heart. So come to the Willamette Valley Pie Company, just outside of Salem. Well, since we've now debuted into Oregon, we ought to play that game. What comes to mind when you think of Oregon? There's many things. I mean, it's a state known for a variety of different quirks and features. For one, I mean, the whole geography of Oregon is very diverse, from beaches to mountains to farmland like this, to arid steppes and almost deserts. It's crazy. Maybe you think of the Oregon Trail. It has the name Oregon in it. Both the real-life trail and the video game. The Oregon Trail was truly the shining star of all those western-heading trails. And it led the first massive waves of immigration to this area. Maybe you think of just the modern culture of Oregon, a place known for quirky cities like Portland, or the people, the hippy-dippy culture with the granola and trail mix, and organic food shops and quirky tastes of music. Yeah, Oregon is what I consider one of those hippy-dippy states, full of that counterculture. Salem is a big example. I didn't really emphasize it, but there's a huge hipster feel when you walk through the streets of Salem. Yeah, I guess out here in the western United States, there's plenty of space for every individual to be themselves just how they want. Well, that's gonna do it here for Salem. We've already covered Salem, Massachusetts, and now we have Salem, Oregon under our belt. And believe it or not, Salem, Oregon is much larger in population than Salem, Massachusetts, a town that precedes it by 200 years or so. Yeah, 175,000 around. That's what the capital of Oregon is gonna be. What a great start to the Beaver State in its very own capital city. Yeah. This might not just be a capital city. It could be more symbolic of the true agricultural heart of the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. Oh, by the way, you know how I gave a couple New England references to the Pacific Northwest with the marionberries or just the history? Well, essentially, the Pacific Northwest is the New England of the West Coast. When you think about who settled here first and the cultural influence that has lasted here, it's kind of that quiet refuge away from the hustle and bustle of those West Coast cities. Now, I know there are substantially sizable cities in Oregon and Washington, but nothing like the big cities of California. No. The largest city pales in comparison to many cities in California. So this is what you're most likely gonna see if you're going through the Pacific Northwest. Well, I think it's time. There has to come a time. Every day we visit a place, the day must end eventually. So with that said, walking across these beautiful, temperate farmlands, just outside of Salem, Oregon, capital of the Beaver State. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location. Oh, check it out. That might be Mount Hood.